piece of headgear. And he's a worm. That's right. It's HanWormhat. He has a new video about a new quarter that's coming out, and how he believes that it has some sort of secret symbology, so let's see what he's up to.
In this video, I want to talk about the new quarter design for 2022. And first I'll point out by saying, when I tried to look up articles of this new quarter design, the articles, they weren't really showing the new front design, which in my opinion is the more interesting part. They've changed the back design all over the place. And
is this it? It just I guess it just kind of looks like a quarter. It says Liberty, I guess. I don't think quarters typically say Liberty. Looks like a quarter.
That really is nothing new. But when I went and looked up articles...
Do they? Okay, so it's not even that. Unless this is an old quarter he's looking at. It is. It's from 2021, I guess. So I don't know what the new quarter looks like.
I wanted to look up some articles for the new quarter design. Almost none of the articles showed you the new front, which in my opinion is the way more interesting part. So I think that they're trying to sweep this under the rug. And I think that the reason they might be doing that is because there's some really obvious symbolism at play with this new quarter design.
Why would they bother doing that? Everyone's going to have them. They're quarters. You get them in change, and then you can look at them. Why bother hiding it? And why put symbology on something if you're not going to have people see it? What would the point be?
And so I'll try to keep it short without rambling too much about the fact that, yeah, the people in control, they really do spend a lot of effort to worry about the details. And something like a quarter design change actually has an enormous amount of thought put into it. It's not just random. And so here we go.
I don't think anyone thought it's random. It's just not conspiracy like symbol bullshit. They obviously take time and effort to design, you know, whatever the currency of your country is going to look like.
I'll just show you what I noticed in this new design. So, yes, the head flip.
So it's a different portrait of George Washington? Okay, and he's looking the other direction.
And that is a huge sign.
It's not. It's not.
Inversion is one of the biggest signs or symbols that gets used. And it always makes me think of people, many people in control are obsessed with this notion of as above, so below. And
only conspiracy theorists are. That's not a thing normal people think about. It's not a thing.
And black and white duality and reflections. And here, I think that the head turning probably just represents a big change.
I'm gonna be honest, I like the old portrait better, but I don't really care.
A huge change for America. And in my opinion, America's Babylon, and
that's not something you get to have an opinion on. America is not Babylon. What are you talking about? Babylon was an ancient civilization, like near the Tigris and Euphrates River. Like, what are you talking about?
So nothing really happens just here. This is happening all over the earth at this point. So you could basically apply any of this stuff to any...
Wait, am I even thinking of the right place? I'm thinking of Samaria, right? Are those related? I'm not good at ancient history.
Anywhere else on earth. So yes, they're huge shift to take the face and just completely flip it. Now, some other things that I noticed straight away.
J.I. Lost says, newsflash, America is America. Same region, different times. Okay.
Away. The head looks way bigger to me. And that instantly made me think of, oh, you know, George Washington represents government, Big Brother, and it's expanding.
Or George Washington's head represents George Washington's head because it's a portrait of George Washington, and we often have presidents on our currency. Not always. There are non-presidents on currency. Most of them are presidents, though.
And that goes along with what has been happening the past few years. What do you know? They're bringing out this new quarter design, and during these past few years, the government has been expanding its powers like crazy.
If by the past couple years you mean since the inception of the federal government, yes, that's not a last couple of years thing.
And encroaching on personal liberties And what do you know?
Like, that goes literally back to the first political parties that existed in the United States after the Constitution. Like, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans fighting over should we have more power reserved for the states, acting as autonomous entities within a union, or a strong federal government overseeing the affairs of the states. Like, that's a constant back and forth that's been happening for centuries. The Civil War was a pretty big part of it. Of course, that had to do with slavery, but the ripple effect of the Civil War ended up being a lot more power being put into the federal branch, and the states being considered more of a unified element, a unified nation after the fact, and not just individual states within a sort of confederacy. Yes, I'm using that word intentionally. But yeah, the creep of federal power has been a thing for a really long time, and it's a big part of the narrative of, like, the civic government of America. Acting like that's a recent thing just tells me Hans doesn't know anything about American history. Darn India Owl says, if he was always depicted from the same side, Hans would be saying, why do we never see his other side? What are they hiding? Yeah, conspiracy theorists work backwards. That's how they work.
In this new coin design, George Washington's head is highly magnified, looks humongous. I don't think that's just random. Also, I don't know if any of you picked up on this. I used the word liberty there for a reason. What do you notice about liberty? In the old coin design, there's ample space between George Washington's head and the word liberty. I mean, you can see the bottom of each.
Look at all that ample space. That's micrometers right there.
E and R clearly here. But in the new design, it's like George Washington's head is starting to cover up.
It's because they made the head bigger. You literally just said the head is bigger. A de facto result of that is going to be there's going to be less blank space.
Liberty. So not only is George Washington's head magnified, which I believe is a pretty obvious representation of the government is getting bigger. And not only that, the way in which the government is getting bigger is taking up liberty. It's starting to cover up liberty. So I think that's a really big and important change for this new dollar, or quarter dollar.
Bittergrin with 100 bits says, apparently that head is specific for the American women quarters and was sculpted by Laura Garden Fraser in the early 20th century. So it's a head design that was made by a woman. Makes sense. Yep. That makes sense. That took 5 seconds of looking into it. Thanks.
So the other thing I noticed, when George Washington flips, basically one of the only other things on the quarter is the part that says "In God We Trust," and that got changed a lot. On this one, George Washington...
They should remove it. That was only added in the 1950s because we were afraid of those godless heathen communists. It really shouldn't be on our money.
Washington is facing "In God We Trust," so on this one, his back is now turned. The George Washington is now facing away from the part that says "In God We Trust." So that could represent turning away from God.
It doesn't.
Here, George Washington normally is looking forward at where it says "In God We Trust," and now has turned his back to God. And notice that
Hans, there literally wouldn't be enough space to put it in front of him unless you wanted it really, really, really tiny, which you would also complain about. It's behind him because there's more empty space behind the portrait.
It's like God was an afterthought. It looks like it has enough space here, and it looks like it's supposed to be here in the original design. But in this, it's like it was an afterthought, and it's like it got forced to be squished.
Yeah, remove it.
So it's like God is an afterthought and is just being... It's only there because it needs to be, and they're just quickly squishing it into the corner. Like, oh yeah, we got the God part covered. Like, it's an afterthought. And then the other thing I noticed about it is that now "we" has been separated and is on the line by itself. It used to be "In God We," trust, and we was right next to God, but now we and God have been separated.
They had to space it differently so it would fit, you idiot. The line can't be that wide without making the text too small. MMO Addicted says Hans wants to snort God. Put it right there in the nose. Co-communion. Clever. Kind of.
And we is now being sandwiched. Doesn't it just look awkward? Like, this is just the thing, too. You stop making excuses. Why would America change something so iconic?
Again, it only got added in the 1950s. Your parents, theoretically, could be older than the In God We Trust on money. Hydrate. Same thing with the Pledge of Allegiance. Under God was not in the Pledge of Allegiance until the 1950s. I think the Pledge of Allegiance is weird anyway, and I don't like it, but, like, it's weird. Darker White says, forgive me if Hans addressed this, but older quarters have the word liberty and much smaller under Washington's chin. He thinks that there's less space for the liberty because government taking my liberties.
As the front of a coin, the front of the quarter, and it looks so awkward and ugly. It's like there has to be reasons that they did this. And also, I think that this part is very suspicious looking.
Spurious symbology is evidence on the bingo card, by the way, if I didn't make that clear.
Like, the quarter doesn't...
Look at that ear. You're telling me George Washington had effing ears? I don't believe it. He had wooden teeth. He must have also had wooden ears. I know how this works.
It doesn't even read...
Where the teeth go, the lobes follow.
well. It doesn't even... Like, what is this? This doesn't even read to me as hair. And it does look very demonic in nature to me, this part.
Satanic on the bingo card. How is George Washington's wig satanic? How can you look at this and read it as satanic?
But anyways, I pointed out the main things, the main symbolism. I'm sure that there's more going on here. I just thought that those ones were very, I don't know, on-the-nose symbols. George Washington's face is magnified. That represents the expansion of government. And the way in which the head has been magnified, it's starting to erase liberty, and it's shoving...
Yeah, I should bring that up. It's a trope that George Washington had wooden teeth. The truth is much worse. He... Not uncommon in the day for people who had plantations. His dentures were actually made out of the teeth of his slaves. America, America. Misattribution of coincidence? Sure. Yeah, so. I've been to George Washington's home. It's a place you can go and visit. And I've seen the slave quarters. Not good. Surprise. They're within eyeshot of George Washington's house, which for the time was quite a nice house. I don't think I can say what I want to say on Twitch about this. I don't know how the people that George Washington claimed to own looked at his house every day and didn't take severe action, especially after he stole their fucking teeth. I do know why. They were in a country that would have, you know, killed them for taking any sort of action. But, it's fucked up. It's real fucked up.
God to the back and turning... George Washington's face has been turned away from God.
George Washington is dead. Fun fact.
So, that's it.
I've seen his tomb.
The devil is in the detail. I mean, the thing...
Hawthorne says, is this the guy who believes squirrels are the only real animals? It is. MMO Addicted says, so, that is what the tooth fairy takes teeth for.
The thing is that if you're watching this video, you're probably already aware of this concept that they hide this symbolism everywhere. I mean, the dollar bill has an Illuminati pyramid on it. How do they get most people to just
It's not an Illuminati pyramid. It's a pyramid with an all-seeing eye, which is representative of the eye of God.
completely dismiss the idea of Illuminati when it's on the dollar bill? And it's this idea of you're either a watcher or you're not. Hearing versus listening.
Oh, Illuminati on the bingo card. Tucker White says, wait an F, I'm just hearing this for the first time. What do you mean George Washington is dead? I know. It wasn't in the news very much.
You know the idea, the difference between hearing and listening?
A cherry tree chopped him down. It's very ironic.
You can hear something that somebody's telling you, but not be listening. And in the same way, you can see all sorts of things, but you're not really watching what's happening. You're just a passive observer. You're not really watching. When you get it, when you're not a muggle anymore, when you learn about magic and how
He's co-opting Harry Potter language now. That's new.
symbolism is the language of magic, you're no longer just passively taking in visual data. You're taking a step back and thinking about it. Oh, well, actually what's going on here? What symbols are being hidden? And often they are hidden. I think of the Bible quote that tells us to be as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. There's a reason wise as a serpent. These evil people are the ones that are obsessed with this notion of hiding symbolism in plain sight. And
no, they're not. No one's hiding anything. You're seeing things where they don't exist, Hans. You are the one obsessed with it.
it's an aspect of magic. And
magic isn't real.
That's maybe just for a future video. I don't want to ramble too much about it. The idea...
Me making a joke about a dead person being alive doesn't count towards the bingo card.
...of evil people being very detail-oriented is nothing new. I think it's what the story about the vampires. If you drop a bag of rice on the ground, a vampire is supposed to stop and count every rice grain. It reminds
1 rice grain. 2 rice grain.
reminds me of in the Bible when Jesus tells them to pull up a net, and they pull up a net and it's so full of fish. The first thing they did was count. They counted the number of fish that there were. Details are very important. There's a reason the magnifying glass is like the symbol.
Oh, vampires on the bingo card.
Of being a
That's a rare one.
detective. There's a reason it's called Mystery Babylon. A mystery is not something that unravels itself. You need to be looking for it. And how do you solve a mystery? You gotta
That's completely untrue. Whenever I put Matlock on, by the end of the episode, it completely unravels itself.
look for clues. And I'll just keep this video at that. Maybe you found it interesting. I think it's pretty obvious the sum of the symbols in the new quarter are clear representations of the way that society is headed. And yeah, I guess it's worth pointing out here, sometimes it's almost like a chicken and the egg situation with the way that they use symbolism and magic. Is this like they're trying to cast a spell? Like they're trying...
No, Hans, you are making symbols out of clouds. You're making pictures out of clouds here. Hans, you have the preconceived notion that you believe the government is getting bigger and taking away your liberty. It's not necessarily, at least not in the ways you think it is. You think the world is becoming more secular, which is true, but you consider that a bad thing. So, you look at something like the quarter, and you come up with ways to justify symbology. They did not bake this into it. They did not encode this symbol. You just decoded nothing into some sort of bullshit symbology. You are the sender and receiver of the message you are trying to get, because you are a conspiracy theorist, and that's what you do. Narnindia Owl says, ah yes, the famous story of Jesus owning the vampires with fish. MH Darkbeast says, please Hans, we know that George Washington was actually a cannibal. Wait, what is this from?
We've been awaiting your arrival. Won't you?
This is from a movie that I cannot, so I can't play it. Masters of Horror, Washingtonians. Okay.
trying to further blot out our liberties, and they're trying to further turn us away from God by doing this. Or
You know, I was a devout Christian until I saw George Washington turned his head away on the quarter from In God We Trust, and then I became a dirty, dirty heathen. Genius! Magic isn't real, Hans. Please.
they just showing us that this is what we're doing. I mean, you just know how many people out there, they talk about the power of attraction and how wanting something, putting something out into the world is the...
Other loonies say that. People who literally believe in the book The Secret believe that. That is another conspiracy theory. It's not true, at least not in the magic metaphysical sense. It's true in the sense that if you focus your energies towards a certain goal, the likelihood of achieving that goal through work is more likely, but you can't just magically have things come to you because you happen to want them.
A way to make it happen. I think that they really do believe that by making a new coin that has hidden symbolism in there where liberty is being blotted out.
No, they don't. They don't think that, Hans. You think that.
I think that they
There is no they.
really do believe they're casting a spell
No. No, they don't.
that will blot out people's liberty. And yeah, I mean, I guess that it's just a topic for another video. What does it do to be a passive observer and to constantly be exposed to hidden symbolism like this that you're just not aware of? Like, what effect does that type of magic have on people? Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. God bless everyone.
So that's Hans. He's still Hans. He doesn't post nearly as often, but when he does, it's crazy. Surprise.